Everyone, and welcome to our session. As Helen said, we're taking the Golden Hoof one step further. I'm Nicola, I'm Project Manager at National Sheep Association, and I'm also a first-generation sheep farmer grazing a sheep flock on a large arable farm in Oxfordshire. I'm delighted to be chairing today's session on a topic close to my heart, integrating livestock into arable and agroforestry systems. So we've talked long about the Golden Hoof and its power to regenerate soils, improve fertility and close nutrient loops. Today we're going to explore how that concept is evolving, how sheep, cattle and livestock can play a central role in not just maintaining but actively improving complex farming systems. Whether it's through grazing cover crops, integrating herbal lays into arable lays, supporting tree establishment or building resilient mixed farming enterprises, livestock are proving to be a vital part of that solution. So whether you're here today because you're thinking about getting on that journey or you've just started, or you're looking to refine your current setup, today's session is packed with practical insights from farmers who bring diverse perspective and hands-on experience. We'll hear from Mike, Jake and Tim, how they've integrated livestock into their systems, and they'll hopefully share their challenges, their lessons and opportunities that have come from their journey, demonstrating the value of sheep and other livestock in true multifunctional land use. So we'll start with Mike. So Mike Adams is a first-generation organic sheep and arable farmer who's in the early stages of establishing agroforestry systems, and he'll share his step on that journey, what he's doing with the sheep farm and the arable side of things, and I guess your motivations and planning to your agroforestry systems.
Okay, thank you. So, I was 3 years ago one of those people that thought anybody that planted trees in the middle of a field was a lunatic. And I got involved in an NSA project, which was an organic project, visiting various places in Europe. I got really excited when we set up for this project, because it was, I thought we were going to find out and learn all about weeds and how you manage weeds in an organic environment. It didn't really work like that. When I got there, we were mainly looking at trees in fields. And the weeds, I found out, were actually a classification system for organic systems. If you've got weeds, you must be organic. So, the kind of my eureka moment was we went to visit a guy in Portugal, and there were 4 brothers that had inherited 4,000 hectares between them. They were traditional cattle farmers. So the 4 brothers had 1,000 hectares each. And if you look on Google Maps, it's quite interesting. 1/4, as in 1,000 hectares, is a lovely green oasis. The other 3,000 hectares are all dusty and all blowing away. And the guy, when we had a tour of his farm, he sat us down, and his first thing he talks about was that nature isn't a monoculture. And he looks at a rainforest as being the perfect environment for everything you've got. Plants on the floor, bushes, trees, high up, vines in the trees. You've got animals on the ground, you've got animals in the high up in the canopy. And what he had, he developed this system on his ground where he had oak trees, so they were cork oaks. He was harvesting the cork oaks. He had the cattle grazing underneath the cork oaks because it was nice and cool. The leaf litter from the oaks was helping the soil fertility and the carbon in the soil. And then he was looking at other things he could do with his trees. So he was harvesting the cork from the trees for obviously the cork. The acorns, he was using the acorns to feed his pigs and made some really nice hams. The quality acorns, he used those to make vegetarian burgers. They roasted some of the acorns to make coffee. It was grim, but people were buying it. And he, on his farm, had 300 different products he was producing and selling with his 30 employees that worked for him on this farm. Compared to his brothers that had maybe 1 stockman each, and most of their soil was blowing down the road. So I thought there must be something in this tree thing. So I came home, and actually Nicola and I went on the next trip. We went to Turkey, and we went on a very, very long bus journey in Turkey. I sat and read the Soil Association Agroforestry manual from front to back. And I got home and I thought, yes, we're going to do something about this. So I went on a workshop at Farm Ed, and it was a workshop for agroforestry. I thought, well, this is great, we're going to learn lots about it. There have been lots of other farmers there that have done this before. There were 3 farmers there. I was one of them, and the other 2 were speaking. The rest of them were Kent Wildlife and various other places like that. So I thought, who else can I ring? So I rang the Woodland Trust. I thought maybe they can help me, maybe they'll have an idea of what to do. So the Woodland Trust came out, they helped me design this project. It went to funding, I think it's Sainsbury's that did the funding for it, and they were quite excited to pay for all the trees, which was a right result. So we've planted all the trees. We've got the first year we put 5 alleys in, 2 alleys of mixed broadleaves, a couple of alleys of fruit trees, and then some coppice as well. This following year I slightly changed the design and I've done some on my own back, so we've done some more fruit trees, and with the idea of what I'd seen in Portugal with sort of stacking enterprises as well as plants and things, and we've planted a load more fruit trees and some more broadleaf trees, although most of those are currently dead, but we'll go again next winter. So what have I learnt from it? One thing I learnt when I went on the agroforestry thing at Farm Ed was that one of the guys was speaking, a guy called Andy, said, whatever you do, don't plant these by the road, because everybody will see it and everyone will talk about it. Well, one of the massive benefits of being a first generation farmer is that most people think you're stupid anyway, so it wasn't really a big deal when I realised I'd planted them all next to the road. But what I come into Groundswell and all these places, we all know the benefits of mob grazing. And I'm, I suppose, guilty of being a little bit lazy or in a rush when I'm moving animals. You chuck them in the field, shut the gate and think, oh no, we'll section them off next week. The problem is when you've got trees in the field, you can't really do that because you won't have any trees left. So what it does do is it drives you and it forces you to section your sheep off and mob graze. So that was the first thing I learned from it. And even the little in the trees in the gardens, it's amazing how much disturbance they do to the wind and how much protection even a few guards have. So they're 2 years old now, my trees, and really started to see some of the simple benefits from tiny little plants, what they're doing. We've put in a lot of alder to try and see what the nitrogen fixing benefits of that will be. Obviously don't have the results of that yet. And then the other question that everybody had when we first did it is why you planted these trees in arable fields. It'll be a nightmare to work with. Well, we've got a little bit of short work in some of the fields because my measuring isn't quite as good as I thought it was. So they're not exactly 24 metres apart. No, they're not exactly 3 metres wide. But it's not that difficult. My plough's not that straight anyway, so it's not a big deal if we go a bit wonky. So I'm continuing to continue with it, so we're going to go for some more again this winter and keep going until we run out of space. So that's me, and that's where we got to.
Right. Do you want me to introduce you?
Go on then.
Yeah, go on then. Thank you, Mike. That was really interesting. Is it easy to do questions at the end, do you reckon? Can people hold questions until the end? Yeah, I've got a lot in the audience. There we go. So next up is Jake Freestone of Overbury Estate. Jake's done a lot in terms of integrating sheep into our rotations and gathers a lot of data and experience from those systems. And he's now got a newly planted agroforestry context. And so we're hoping to hear about, I guess, what you're doing there in your system. Oh, I'm really loud. What you're doing in your system and how it's benefiting the sheep in your farm and the agroforestry in particular. Thanks, Jake.
Thanks, Nicola. Yeah, great to be here. Agroforestry is something I've kind of been researching for a number of years. It's quite a commitment, actually, when you're thinking of trees that are going to be there for 300 plus years. So you want to make sure you get it somewhere near right. But agroforestry for us is only part of our integration, part of how the sheep work together hand in hand with the arable crops that we grow. So I just wanted to run through a little bit of an intro, really, I guess. We're on the Gloucestershire-Worcestershire border. The farm is 1,000 feet above sea level at its top, Cotswold brash, sitting on a lump of limestone, comes down over sand and gravel and then Evesham series clay. So we've got some really mixed soils. We usually get 700 mil of rain. This year, from the beginning of January, I think we're on about 150. So climate change and resilience is something that integration of livestock into the arable is definitely helping us with. We have a laser focus on soil health. How can we improve the soil's water holding capacity on the sand and gravel land and the brash land? How can we get better infiltration on the heavy land? And the sheep are actually quite key to doing that. We grow about 900 hectares at home of combinable crops: wheat, barley, oilseed rape, peas, beans, linseed. We have 40 hectares or so of veg land that we let out: beetroot, tender stem broccoli. The sheep will cross most of the fields every couple of years, whether grazing cover crops or grazing some of the herbal lays and things like that we put in. The sheep themselves, we'll talk about those in a second, but on the wider estate, we've got higher tier stewardship, mid-tier, 10 years and 5-year agreement options. We've got a couple of SFIs underway as well, and those actually are really supportive of our sheep enterprise on the farm. And I can't go anywhere without saying that we're a leaf linking environment and farming demonstration farm as well. So on the next slide, please. Here we go. Oh, there we go. Hold on, we'll go back a little bit. Giving you a sneak preview of what we're all talking about now. So, the system itself, we are into regenerative farming in quite a big way. We've been involved really for over 10 years now with direct drilling. That underpins basically everything that we do. We can't go direct drilling to improve soil health, water infiltration, worm numbers, etc., without a good rotation, good solid rotation with brassicas, with cereals, with grass in it. And then we need to have cover crops as well. So this is us drilling winter wheat actually into a cover crop that we put in after oilseed rape and before the wheat crop. This was the 7th of October last year. So everything gets cover cropped. We're massively keen on living roots, capturing carbon, pushing that into the soil, feeding all the soil biology there as well. And the livestock integration is part of what we're about. And we integrate that in various different ways. So through FIPL funding, Farming in a Protected Landscape, we purchased a compost turner where we take the straw from the stud farm, we mix it with poultry litter, we add wood chip and we add hay, and that goes into windrows, and then we're applying that to the fields. But also the livestock growing stubble turnips, nearly 90% of the straw we chop and return that as a residue. When I was in America doing Nuffield, they had a fantastic expression called soil armour, and you can see that demonstrated there with a residue. That soil is protected, it's covered, it's cooler, 10 degrees cooler where we have a residue cover as opposed to where we don't. And then cover crops are in there as well, and all this goes into improving soil health, improving nitrogen fixing, nitrogen holding capacity within the soil, water infiltration, and general improvement. So the sheep fit in really nicely in terms of moving around the farm. I'm very lucky in that we've got 2 fantastic contract shepherds who love fencing, which is one of the key kind of drawbacks to the system in arable. Here we go. So across the farm for the 1,000 ewes, oh, we're going crazy here. We've got about 307 hectares or so of permanent pasture. We have got herbal lays both in higher level stewardship, the GS4s, and then we have also got another 70 hectares in terms of kind of SFIs. We have cover cropping, probably cover crop about 300 hectares a year. Everything gets cover crop that's going into spring cropping. And we also cover crop in the summer after oilseed rape before wheat. Anything that's a kind of 5 or 6 week gap, we will get a cover crop established in there to capture the carbon that we possibly can. Put about 60 hectares of stubble turnips down a year for lamb and ewe, winter feed. And the positive side of that, apart from playing yoga or playing some sort of backwards and forwards ping pong with this machine, is that it keeps the ewes off of our permanent pasture for as long as possible. We want to try and get 90 to 100 days of sheep off the grass basically before we go further forward. This picture, I will just try and go back without it going completely bonkers, is ewes grazing ewes grazing and understory of clover. Okay, we'll abandon that, I think. So we also put the sheep over the cereal crops as well. In certain years we have an opportunity to graze both wheat and barley, and we can get kind of in the region of 650 grazing days per hectare on those crops as well. That works nicely. These are just some ewes. The previous picture was ewes and lambs grazing herbal lays. And this is a great arable break in terms of getting on top of weed control. So we'll put the grass lay down for 4 or 5 years. A couple of years isn't long enough to get on top of black grass. So if we can get 4 or 5 years out of the grass lay, and then we can direct drill straight into that, minimal disturbance, we tend to be able to sort out black grass very, very quickly. Lots of legumes in these crops, which again, part of building that soil health, part of putting organic nitrogen systems back in there, improving earthworm numbers, again, fantastic for drainage. All of these grass benefits also help the sheep in terms of getting ewes and lambs onto fresh grazing. And again, moving lambs onto a crop like this. This is cover cropping. So this particular crop was planted after wheat and before spring oats. This was in November. It's a mixture of berseem clover, mustard, there's some buckwheat in there, phacelia, turnips, forage rape. Cost us just over £27 a hectare in seed. Then we had to drill it. We were getting, again, 650 lamb grazing days per hectare out of that. So quite a good, efficient way of fattening lambs, making the most of that cover crop. We're grazing about 50% of the above ground material. The other 50% we're kind of trampling in. This year it was really difficult because it was so wet through November, December, and we made quite a bit of a mark kind of poaching some of these fields, which was not great, but managing that and moving them on quickly. So we had them in kind of 1 or 2 hectare blocks, moving them every couple of days. When rain was forecast, we'd try and move them the day before so they were on as much cover as they could be. We'd graze that off, graze it down, and then move them on a little bit. 5-minute fallow, hugely important in terms of can we get the maximum carbon return for the seed costs. And cover crops planted at the beginning of August can have 4 times the carbon capture and the biomass growth than something planted at the beginning of September. So actually you're investing the same amount in the drilling operation and the seed, but you're getting 4 times the return. So that's really important. So we've got to be organised and crack on with that. It'll be a challenge, I think, this year with everything being so dry as to whether these cover crops and stubble turnips are going to actually grow. But we'll have to see how we go. And we're targeting lambs at sort of 20 to 22 kilos dead weight, R3L, sort of supermarket specification, really. We are planting clover, or vetches rather, in with the stubble turnips to try and bring some diversity to our cropping, if you like. The comment was made earlier, actually, really well, in that Mother Nature doesn't do monoculture. Everything is kind of mixed. You've got different stories, different layers. So the inclusion of a little bit of vetch actually really helps. Really helps get these crops away. And grazing lambs kind of December, January, February, hoggets, and then those go back into spring barley, spring oats, or veg cropping as well. And if we manage it properly and correctly, we can direct drill straight into that as well with a disc drill. Although again, that was tricky this year. We did put a cultivator, a little light disc across the top of it this year. So again, it's part of the challenge of managing in a changing climate. Lots of heavy rainfall makes some of this a little bit challenging, but we're set up in the system and it's getting better and easier as we've been going as long as we have. This is just a bit of an overshot of some ewes grazing understory of clover. The plan is to keep the clover in the fields for 4 or 5 years. In reality, we're probably getting about 3 years worth of clover. It's a micro clover, so it doesn't grow any taller than about 6 inches. Rivendale and Galway is the varieties. And actually, this was the first year we put them in. We put hay around the edges of the fields. The first week they ate the hay. The second week onwards, they weren't bothered at all. The gut biology had adapted to the clover, and we probably put half to 3/4 of the condition score on those ewes in about 4 weeks. So actually, really great opportunity. That was the middle of October, just before we direct drilled wheat into there. Fantastic opportunity to save in terms of fertiliser, chemistry. This was that same field in November. You can see the clover there, the wheat just coming up through there as well. So building soil health, we're reducing our herbicides. In terms of the wheat crop, that just had a bit of shot of glyphosate, litre and a half of glyphosate to take out grass weeds, didn't touch the clover, and then just a little bit of Liberator to get that through, and that's all it had for the year. We cut back on fungicides, cut back on further herbicides, and that's put quite a lot of organic matter back into the fields, as well as capturing and fixing a fair bit of nitrogen as well, which we measured through soil mineral N testing through the latter part of the year, and when we move into the springtime. So lots going on in terms of the overall integration. If we can just move to the next slide. So grazing wheat and barley. We haven't done it for a year or two because we haven't quite had the forward enough crops, if you like. But this is 4 days after quite a hard grazing. This was about 900 feet up, and they've taken quite a lot of the old dead material away. A lot of Septoria spores had also been ingested, manure put back on. There's a fantastic relationship between the ruminant's saliva and the plants, so that triggers and stimulates root development. It's kind of that ancient kind of grazing and ripping, something that a livestock's mouth can do better than a topper. So we had much more established plants. We didn't need any PGRs, that's plant growth regulation. Disease pressure was a lot lower. And it actually kept quite a lot of ewes away from the lambing grass back in February. Again, we were getting about 350 grazing days per hectare on a winter barley field. So that was really quite an interesting one. We're doing that on the hill where we've got free draining soils and lots of grazing. And then agroforestry. This was something we just established this year. We had some funding from the Woodland Trust for the trees on your farm, so thank you very much to the Woodland Trust. FIPL, farming in a protected landscape, paid for the fencing, so they're individual rows, 42 metres apart, and the trees sit on a 6-metre strip of grass. This is GS4, so a herbal ley. It's in its final year this year. This will be sprayed off and it'll go into wheat in September. And this does help us with our mob grazing, if you like. So the alleyway fencing acts, bar a few stragglers, which I think had escaped, or I'd like to think that they were just being nursed round to join the main slightly earlier ewes that had lambed. And it's planted slightly off north-south, so sort of north-northwest down to south-southeast. So we get shading. The trees themselves are 3 metres apart, but every 9 metres we've got a big tree, and a bit little at the moment, they will be big trees. Walnuts, sweet chestnuts, oak trees and apple trees, and then in the intermediate spaces at 3 metres we've got alder, goat willow and hazel as well. So the plan is that over time the fencing will come down. At the moment it's trying to keep the deer out and the sheep out. That the sheep will be able to browse on the smaller trees, and then the other ones will be kind of nuts and fruits for the future, really. So really exciting opportunity. So thank you to those that helped fund that, because without that these things wouldn't happen. So sheep for us hugely important, both for their own enterprise, but also that integration and the help for the arable system as well. And I just wanted to leave with this final picture, if it will appear. Just demonstrating this. I took this the other day. so it was dark when I took the picture. Which is this one here. I know we've all seen it on our farm, but this just highlighted to me. It's a herbal ley, established last autumn, hasn't come particularly well. We're giving it a bit of a graze now, but there's only one tree in the middle of a 5-hectare field, and that's where all the sheep are sitting, literally to the final kind of centimetre or two of shade. So trees, hugely important, so many benefits. Both for livestock and also for the arable as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jake. That's really interesting. Great to know you've integrated obviously agroforestry and sheep successfully into your farming systems, what we like. So next we've got Tim Pratt. So last but not least, very not least, is Tim Pratt. He's farm manager at Wantisden Hall Farm, and he'll give us a broad view of how the sheep, cattle and pigs work together within both arable and horticultural operations in a mixed farming model. So Tim's doing horticulture as well, and I thought this would be quite different to what Jake and Mike are doing. So I'll hand over to Tim.
Thank you. So yeah, we're slightly different than the others. We are roughly 1,600 hectares, and half of that is cereals and the other half is veg. So we are very spring orientated with our workload. So potatoes, onions, carrots, asparagus, lettuces. We are growing now on quite a large scale, right on the east coast of Suffolk, basically. So for us, I started the farm about 20 years ago now, and there's no livestock at all very much intensive veg cropping. So our soils are very, very light sandy land. Our organic matter is 1%. It's basically beach, but we try and grow crops in it realistically. Water is really important for us. Without water, we are literally gorse, heather, and bracken, basically. So our land is very, very, very poor. We'll say that it's a culture to grow vegetables in. So I initially wanted to bring livestock back into the rotation. So for us, the initial start was pigs. Actually, pigs were quite an easy one. There's lots of pig producers in the east. They all want outdoor pig production on very light land. So we initially started that. Which helped for me because it was a great way of clearing up any volunteer potatoes, but also they put a lot of muck back into the land. So generally our pigs in a rotation, we've got 150 acres of pigs roughly. They are great, well they're not grazing, they're eating and all sorts of veg on the land. We feed them obviously, but they're working around the estate on a 2-year rotation basically on our very light land. And roughly our indices will be up by 1 following pig production basically. So there is a bit of a mess after pigs. They make a mess. In the summer it looks quite nice, but in the winter it's a bit of it's a bit messy, if we're honest. So, but you have to live with that, with the benefits it brings, basically. So that was the initial stage. I'm really a livestock farmer from the southwest. I've ended up on a veg farm in Suffolk. So I have a bit of livestock in my background. So I quite like. Well, I wanted something which we could try and integrate into the farming business. So we are very spring heavy with our workload. And then in the winter time, we're relatively, I say we're not quiet, but we're quieter, I suppose. So the spring workload really, I suppose, starts from January. So we start planting carrots in January, February, and then our potatoes and everything else, February, March, April, carrying on basically. So we have a nice spell. We're actually from really the middle of June, we have land coming available. So we are lifting, at the moment, we're lifting potatoes on a daily basis, we lift carrots on a daily basis, night and day. So we're clearing land all the time at the moment. So I have a potential period of maybe 6-7 months, there's nothing on those fields. So for me, I'm trying to find something we can try and put back into the land, nutrients, recycle, all those things we can do, and try and build a bit of structure. Wind is a real worry for us. Wind can blow really badly on the east coast, and we have a lot of wind erosion if we're not careful. So I wanted to put a crop in basically, and at the same time I wanted to try and utilise all that green matter which we could grow quite quickly. Water, obviously, as I said, is a big problem. So a dry year like this, for cover crops is harder, but we've got enough land, we plant enough crops that generally we've got enough grub around us to cater to the sheep. Now, for me, we looked at a breed of sheep which we could try and utilise. I've got a small area of maybe 40 odd acres of grass. That's all I've got basically. So the rest of it is purely arable crops with a lot of electric fencing, which arable farmers we have to learn to use and do basically. So I wanted to breed a sheep actually which we could lamb in the autumn and market all our lambs if we could by March, April the next year. So actually we went with Dorsets, we got 400 Dorset ewes. We lambed them all in September out on the 40 acres of grass basically, all outdoors. We then run them 6 weeks on grass and then they all go into cover crops, and that's where they stay all the rest of the year basically pretty much until we start needing them back in March, April. So from October onwards they're on cover crops, they're grazing cover crops, then we start killing lambs January, February, March, April, they're all gone, and then actually the ewes then go back to the ram in April where they can then go back onto the grass, and that's where they stay all summer. So I wanted as many sheep as I could all winter and as few sheep on the farm as I could all summer realistically. So that for us has worked really well. So we've been able to maximise all of the what would be veg land. So all that land we've been able to put into cover crops, and now we're all in SFI schemes, we're getting paid for it. We're able to utilise some of that. So actually it's been really good. We've been doing it a long time now, but that has definitely helped us. Definitely helped. And we're spreading it over all our contract farms as well. So we're able to move it around, and we're actually using. We need more sheep actually, so we've been getting a lot of sheep, store lambs coming in now as well, so we're fattening 1,200-1,500 store lambs in the winter time as well. So we've got enough land now, we can just concentrate on the winter months and then ship them all out in the spring. Labour, finding good labour in the east of England where it's not really a livestock production area, particularly sheep, it's been quite difficult, so trying to find good guys has been hard. But actually we've ended up getting some on the farm, which works really well to be fair, because in the summer he irrigates and carts potatoes, and in the winter he basically does sheep. So there's a nice utilisation of labour within our business as well. That, the organic matter, which we are slowly trying to build up, but it's a slow process. But we're using a lot of the similar cover crop types, so we're basically utilising a lot of stubble turnips, vetch, rye, Phacelia, all sorts, and a cereal base in there as well. So there's a lot we're trying to do with that. The pigs on our business is really sort of, pigs is a tricky one, because there is a bit of, people like to see pigs outside to a certain extent, but there is a bit of a mess with it. And there are issues with erosion and things. We do have that from time to time. A lot of those pig fields which we try and put in on a 2-year basis all have a clover or lay undersow on those fields to try and keep that soil within that field if we can. But it has been a learning process, I suppose. The pigs haven't been overly easy, to be fair. Pig market is up and down, so it's been a bit of a learning curve. But definitely the integration of the livestock into a very much an arable livestock intensive veg system has actually worked quite well for us. Every enterprise needs to stack up, so we need to make money out of the sheep. Lamb prices have been pretty good this year. For us, we're on a nice Waitrose contract, which is quite easy and simple. But we need to make every business, and realistically, the sheep business is a small part of our overall business now. But it all adds to the story to a certain extent, and it all adds overall to our farm business, I think. So it's worked well.
Great. Thank you, Tim. Right, I'm going to open up to questions if anyone's got any in the audience. I think we've got a roving mic somewhere. Yeah, it's working. Perfect. We think it's working. We had some technical difficulties before you guys turned up. Yes, and the lady down.
Test the volume for me. Yeah, fine. Thanks very much. That was great, guys. Jake, with the sheep, just so I can understand how you manage that. You, the estate, or you own the sheep, but you have contract shepherds, and then so they obviously come in and do the big jobs, or are they making the decisions around when they get moved and all that kind of grass management stuff as well?
So yeah, the estate own the sheep, and then the contract shepherds, Sam and Shirley, are in doing the day-to-day management with me in terms of the strategy and what we do and what we do when. But the day-to-day movement will be up to them, unless I intervene and get involved. But I try to leave that to them.
And do they have other people they contract for, or are they really just with you?
So Sam's got his own farm and his own farm shop, so he does that, and then Shirley is with us, for the majority of time. But when we're busy, they're both in. when it's less busy, somebody just come and check for a couple of hours around in the morning, and then they disappear away.
So just another question there for you. Just you say you're grazing the sheep on the barley and the wheat. How far does that set your harvest back?
Nothing negligible. They're on there January, and we took them out last year, end of Feb. So just before it kind of starts to take off. Haven't really noticed any changes really. It soon catches up.
And any changes to yield?
No, we did one field last year that we didn't do. We only did 3/4 of the field, and no, absolutely fine. I know speaking to some people, depends a little bit on the weather that you get afterwards. If you're grazing off oilseed rape, you take too much leaf off, you kind of expose the growing point, and then if you have frosty weather after that, it can be a bit of a problem. So the experiences we've had have been no detriment at all.
And then do you reduce your inputs then?
Yeah, mainly fungicide. We do put a little bit of extra nitrogen on earlier. So we use the same amount, but we just put it on earlier because we still need to kind of regrow that biomass. And looking at some of the NDVI work from the satellite imagery that we use when we're doing variable rate nitrogen, those areas of the field that we've grazed do get a little bit more earlier on. So because it just you need to build that biomass, but it's clean, fresh biomass that it's growing.
Yeah. Can I just add to that? Sorry, we grazed quite a lot of our barley fields as well, and actually for the first few years we just did half the fields, so we can get an idea of what the difference was. And actually, once you've taken the sheep away and you give it almost just a week, you would hardly tell the difference of sheep has been on there. It's amazing how much regrowth it comes.
So how long do you leave them on?
We're leaving them on probably, depending on the number, if anything. So depending on the type of field, whether it's light or heavy to a certain extent, we do change it. But probably only 2 weeks in a block at a time. We try and do it quite quickly and then move them on again.
Yeah, I think the secret is to stock it quite heavily, but then move them more often. So you're getting a very even graze. If you give them too big a patch, then they just kind of wander around and you get trapping everywhere. But if they've got a relatively small patch, we were probably 4 hectares, 120 sheep in there, and leave them in there for 5 to 7 days and then move them. But it's a bit of a balance between having that and the cost of labour and the fencing costs. So you could put them in hectares, move them every day, but then there's additional costing involved in that as well. So it is a bit of a balance.
Sorry, I'll shout. Do you allocate per dry matter basis? Do you measure and allocate that way?
No, we don't. No. Probably should do. There's something else to do.
Oh, yeah.
Any more questions?
I've got some.
There you go.
There you go. And your medalist reason. So, Jake, you mentioned some challenges you faced when you were putting in the arable systems, as you all have with integrating sheep. You've all mentioned fencing. I'm sure Mike, you've obviously covered electric fencing as well. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced integrating livestock into this arable, and if you're already doing it into those agroforestry and horticulture systems, and how have you addressed them? Who wants to go first? Okay.
I'll go really quick with start off with. So obviously with some of our veg we have to be very careful with livestock in the rotation. So lettuces, obviously, leafy salads, anything like that, we have to have 24 months with no livestock in the rotation. So our rotation is really important of where we're going to move sheep or pigs or whatever it is. So that's an initial one, because before we'd almost try and get everywhere covered with sheep and graze, but now we have to be a little bit more mindful of what's going on basically. So supermarket protocols is a good one.
I think fencing and water. Water, we've made up a whole load of IBCs on little trailers that we can pull around and drop in the little different sections, and then you've just got to be organised to kind of move those around with the sheep. But yeah, fencing and water.
And I think fencing, especially on dry weather at the minute, fencing, it's getting them to stay up. It's quite a challenge. Yeah. And also, and moving water in when it's wet. So we're on heavy ground, so moving water around when it's wet can make a mess.
And for those farmers that are possibly in the audience that are keen to integrate livestock into those arable systems but don't know where to start, have you got any advice for them? So obviously we've set up a few things to think about: water, fencing, how many sheep you're going to put on an area. Is there any other areas or people they can go to, or have you all always been arable farmers, or did you? Sheep and arable farmers, did you get into livestock? I know some of you touched on it, but is there anything that you could give the audience in terms of where to go to for advice?
I mean, the NSA would be a good place to go to. We've always been sheep and arable. I guess the old integration was just stubble turnips. That's all we used to do. We used to spin turnips and rapeseed into standing wheat, and then we would graze that. So we've always had that opportunity. We've always had our own sheep, which is fantastic. And I guess the integration bit is when you start looking at the system and looking at the forage that you can grow, how can you make the most of that forage? And then that's when you start looking at grazing cover crops, when you start looking at herbal lays, when they're sort of part funded through stewardship or SFI. Obviously that helps take advantage of that, and then you start learning more about soil health and then how grasses and legumes can help with that as well. What was the question?
Advice. Where did you go for advice in terms of?
I just went for it. Just do it. Give it a go, basically. Buy a block and have a go with them. By block I mean a block of sheep sort of thing. Just give it a go, and then you learn from your mistakes. Inevitably, you learn from your mistakes. We've changed things. I started off with another breed of sheep. Started off with. Well, that just didn't fit our system at all. So we ended up changing, and then we've got a system which now works very well. And I think it's a matter of just having a go, really. It's like grazing cereals. You don't know until you're giving it a go. You can see on the combine the data you receive and what the yields are, the savings on fungicides and things. So there are definitely things you can benefit. That are beneficial. Definitely benefit to do it. So give it a go.
Yeah, just one thought actually as well. It's a great opportunity for any next generation farmers or new people, new entrants that want to get involved. You might not want to have your own sheep, you might not want to do their own fencing, but somewhere there's probably somebody that might have 50, 100 ewes that might want to come in and do that, and you can start working out a joint venture with them. So opportunities all round really.
That leads me really nicely to NSA Graziers list. So I think we mentioned it last year at Groundswell, but we've set up like a matchmaking service. So if you're an arable or landowner here at Groundswell today, you can advertise the fact that you've got cover crops or herbal lane rotation that needs grazing free on our website. And if you just put in NSA Graziers list onto Google, and hopefully it'll come up. If not, come and find us at the wall tent today. We've got some little business cards with a QR code on. And then if you're an NSA sheep farmer, you can advertise your sheep flocks as well. So we're not going to find you a flock of sheep, or vice versa, we're not going to find you land, but they'll be listed there on the website for people to go and utilise it, and then there'll be contact numbers on there that you can make. So hopefully that'll help some people get on that journey if they're not already on it. Jake, you touched upon the benefits of sheep and arable, as has Mike and as has Tim, on soil health, the sheep health, the ewe body condition scores, the lamb health, etc. And we've got a benefit of sheep and arable's booklet again. So if you're potentially thinking about going down the sheep and arable route and you're a sheep farmer and or an arable landowner, there's a booklet we've got. I think we've got some on us. There's some on the website, available to download on the website, that goes through the practical challenges in a bit more detail, things to think about, what to go for graziers agreements, that sort of thing. And then obviously Mike's discussed how he's planning to go down the agroforestry route and how he's integrated that. We've also got the benefits of sheep and trees in booklet that we produced in joint collaboration with Woodland Trust. So we've got lots of advice on our website for people if they just wanted to get those ideas. Helen's mentioned the sessions that you can drop into as well. So I just want to thank all our speakers today for a really insightful session. And just to finalise the day to say really that I think what ties all these stories together is that clear commitment to innovation, regeneration and adaptability, and it's really inspiring to see how livestock are far from being the complication, but actually can be that cornerstone of productive, sustainable, future-facing farming. So hopefully we sparked some ideas today, offered reassurance and perhaps even challenged your thinking. And whether you're just exploring integration or deep into your own journey, the key takeaway is that collaboration between the species, systems and the farmers is where that real progress lies. So thank you Tim, Jake and Mike, and thank you Helen for the opportunity to speak today, and thank you all for coming.